Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for your warm greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to join with all of you. The coin of the realm, I think, in the world with which I was privileged, we had many meetings in this beautiful room. The coin of the realm in personal relationships, I think, is honesty. The coin of the realm in politics is if you say something, you mean it. I mean, I can speak from years of experience as a proud Republican, but occasionally I told my leadership no. When I said no, I meant no. When I said yes, I meant yes. So just keep that thought in your own head and in your own heart. For you as a person, as an individual, as a family member, or someone involved in the political process, how important is it to keep your promises? Two other thoughts. The #1 terrorist state in the world is Iran. The #1 terrorist state in the world is Iran. They are at the epicenter of every chaotic moment and event in the Middle East. They are supporting Assad in Syria. They have disproportionate influence in Iraq. And they support Hezbollah, which has not only armed forces supporting Assad in Syria, but responsible for a lot of the unrest and the challenges in the Middle East. Take a trip down memory lane with me, just briefly. Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Every morning I wake up, come down the steps, go to the White House, I get a briefing book. Sometimes we call it a threat matrix. Some days it'd be a couple pages, some days it'd be a couple dozen pages. It would be all the threats gathered over the previous 24 hours that the intelligence community was willing to share with me, listed threats against Americans or American interests here or abroad, terrorist threats. I will tell you, in my entire time in the White House and as Secretary of Homeland Security, not once did I see the MEK listed as responsible for a potential threat against the United States of America. Now, by the way, they were put on the Foreign Terrorist Organization list in 1997, as Ambassador Bolton and other people have said, in order to mollify the mullahs, to try to show them it's a matter of goodwill. And why did we do that? Because for the past, the reason they were given, ironically, the reason Saddam Hussein let them build Camp Ashraf is because the mullahs detested them, hated them, they feared them. And by the way, under Ahmadinejad and Rouhani, who's now executing people at a faster rate than, and he's the moderate, than Ahmadinejad, they've killed about 30,000 members of the MEK. So take that trip down memory lane with me. So when I leave, I'm proud to have served this country and my president in many different ways. And by the way, it'll become important for you to know at one time I was a soldier. So I leave the administration, and from the diaspora of Iranian Democrats, small d, the dissidents around the world, the leadership approaches and said, would you help? We've got a group who we believe is improperly listed as a foreign terrorist organization. By the way, you don't have to be a lawyer. Go check it out. Foreign terrorist organization, take a look at the prerequisites to be on it. And if you did a little history check, you'd find they probably should have never been on it. But if you look at it carefully, it should never have been sustained until last year. And you don't have to be a lawyer to draw those conclusions. The law and the facts are pretty straightforward, but they're on it. And the goal of all their friends and family and relatives, frankly, the friends and family of a lot of people that got killed here a couple months ago, you ought to meet some of their sons and daughters and talk to them and ask them if their father was a terrorist. They said, we need to get them off the list. I do my own due diligence. I've got a little credibility. I used to be Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Do I want to be supporting an organization that I think is a terrorist organization whose ultimate goal is to do harm to the United States? I think the answer is, you know, it is not my goal, and it's not something I want to be associated with. We start having conversations, and I join an incredible group of men and women, Republicans and Democrats, military, diplomatic. You have no idea of the powerful picture it would be if you saw the assembled people, because we aren't R's and D's on this issue, we are Americans on this issue. This rises above partisanship in every manner, shape, or form. It rises above partisanship. I suspect we have R's and D's in the audience, and that's good, because this is not a political issue. It's an American issue. And I'll tell you why I think it's an American issue. Because around, I think it was 2004, once we've gone into Iraq and said, here's the exchange. You give us your ability to defend yourself, and we will guarantee you protection as protected persons under the Fourth Geneva Convention. There was no hesitation. They trusted America. Why did they trust America? Because we gave them our word that if they surrendered their own means of self-defense, we would provide that self-defense for them. How important is your word to you, to your family, to this process, and now I ask you, to your country? We take their arms. No incidents when we were in charge of security. Flash forward a couple of years, we have the Status of Forces Agreement in Iraq. We turn the responsibility over to Iraq to provide for the safety and security of 3,000 plus people who are protected persons under the Fourth Geneva Convention, and Maliki's government signs it. His word. When you get back to the office, Google Ashraf, April 2011. Have a strong stomach, because you'll see Humvees that we provided and troops that we trained enter Camp Ashraf and very meticulously mow down people like it's target practice. Remember, they have no way of defending themselves. It's not a Republican issue, that's not a Democrat issue, that's a humanitarian issue, and more importantly, our word has been, our credibility has been shaken, our word has been broken. Today, as of today, this is April of 2011, nothing's gone on. Nobody's brought to justice, everybody's kind of washed their hands of it. I could argue that if you wanted to send a signal to Iran that we're serious, we would do something very decisive with Minister Maliki, because it's apples and oranges, ladies and gentlemen. The notion somehow that if we keep these people subjected to a repressive regime in an unsafe condition, many people call it a concentration camp, somehow that means that the Iranians are going to be willing to make whatever arrangements or compromises that we need as a country, and frankly the world needs, and the people left at liberty. 42 of them went from Ashraf to the others were killed, some handcuffed, some on the gurneys seeking medical care. How important is your word? How important is America's credibility? Two final observations I'd like to make to you and share with you. It is inconceivable to anyone who has observed what's going on in Ashraf and now at liberty, for the United States of America's State Department to conclude that the Maliki government is not responsible for what transpired. There's no reason you should know this, but you cannot get in and out of liberty. You couldn't get in and out of Ashraf, and you can't get in and out of liberty unless you go by multiple pre-positioned groups of troops from the Iraqi government. The world knows that Maliki was responsible, but the State Department's in denial. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Let's talk about those hostages. The State Department has told us they're not in Iraq. It's a convenient cover-up. If you don't think they were responsible for the incursion, you certainly don't want to claim that they've got the hostages either, do you? But Amnesty International, as several of the previous speakers have spoken, have said that's where they are. And so you say to the State Department, well, if they're not there, where are they? Who took them? Have you inquired of the 42 survivors what transpired at Ashraf? It's an endless list of, frankly, misleading, disingenuous, pro-Iraqi, for whatever reason, assurances that they had nothing to do with it, and the whole world knows we're wrong, which tarnishes our credibility, in my judgment, even further. And by the way, let's not forget, 6 of the 7 are women. Not that it makes any difference, but the fact is, Maliki's troops are responsible for and involved in all 5 attacks. They know exactly where these people are, and yet we claim that there's no reason to blame the Maliki government. So I join in with the previous speakers. No aid, no support, nothing. And we can blame UNHCR, and the UN's got a lot of blame. Maliki's got a lot to be on his shoulders, almost crimes against humanity as far as I'm concerned. But at the end of the day, there's one primary reason that there have been 5 attacks, multiple deaths, hundreds of injuries. There's only one reason that the people protected under the 4th Geneva Convention have not been provided the safety and security that they deserved. There's only one reason that these men and women have not had the opportunity to be relocated out of Iraq and then to resettlement. And frankly, the United States has to look itself in the mirror. There's a lot of blame to go around, but at the end of the day, we gave our word. And every one of these individuals that died on September 1st, 2013, probably had in their letter, they may have been buried with it if they had a chance to be buried, the letter, everybody got an individual letter from the presiding general at the time that said you are protected persons and the United States is responsible for your safety and security. It's not a partisan issue, ladies and gentlemen. Maliki's government is responsible, and we look the other way. Maliki's government's responsible for the attack in September. We look the other way. Maliki's government's responsible for the detention and probably torture of the 7 hostages, and we look the other way. I'll go back to the question that I offered at the outset. How important is it to you as an American citizen? I don't care how you're registered. It's immaterial. When your country gives its word to a group of people who have surrendered their ability to protect themselves, is it important for us to keep it or not? If you have nothing else in the world of personal relationships, domestic politics, or geopolitically around the globe, it's your word. And if you don't abide by your word today, who can trust you to abide by it tomorrow? And if we are to be more engaged in the world and not less engaged, and somebody like me thinks that's what we have to do in the 21st century, then I say to all of you, if you have an opportunity to address this issue in one manner, shape, or form, if you're looking for just one simple reason, you don't have to know about the MEK, you don't have to worry about the FTO list, you don't have to worry about anything. Because at some point in time in their lives, these men and women, and they've been preceded by dozens of others, were told by the United States of America, we'll protect you. But for me, as an American, when we give our word, we ought to keep it. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.